He has one of the best Werner Herzog impressions I've ever heard.
Woo! Herzog! Do I have to do Herzog? It's maybe appropriate to talk about. Mary admonished everybody to wear a costume to this. So I'm wearing a costume. I look like a professional, because, it's a costume that we all wear in our jobs, and it's lame. Please come see me play the Joker in Suicide Squad 2, coming in next time. Okay, so this is a thing about my sort of undying interest in a little-known actor named Tom Cruise, and cults. Okay. So this is called, after Roland Barthes, Tom Cruise by Tim Jones. My dad, who is still married to my mom, was a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy until I was about 10. Because my dad is also a huge nerd, he and I played military flight simulators on the computer he built himself for most of my young childhood. And early obsessive, I loved to memorize model numbers and nicknames of military planes. My favorite plane, as long as I can remember having one, was always the F-14 Tomcat. I have some half memory of making this choice because 14 is the day of my birthday in May. Tom is pretty similar to my name, Tim, and I just like cats. The Tomcat is out of service now. It's out of service, but we sold all of them to the Iranian military, so it's kind of still in service. But 4 years before I was born, Tom Cruise played second lead to the Tomcat itself in the film Top Gun. I want some butts! Which is what Duke Stroud yells at Tom Cruise about 20 minutes into the film Top Gun inside of an aircraft carrier. This is the secret thesis of Top Gun. Suggesting that Top Gun is homoerotic is not exactly revolutionary or, clever at this point. But what makes it worth discussion is the way that criticism contemporary to its release disagrees with such a reading entirely. The word macho gets tossed around a lot, as in Manohla Dargis's description of Cruise's performance as a, quote, breezily facile macho, unquote, character. The correct accusation that it's a commercial for the military is frequently made by Roger Ebert, among others. The U.S. Navy publicly stated that Top Gun boosted recruiting numbers, suggesting that the combined efforts of this film and The Village People did very little to alter the masculinity of the Navy brand, especially among their key demographic, who advertising would later reveal are just really into Godsmack. The centerpiece of both of these interpretations is the volleyball scene in the middle of the film where Cruise and Val Kilmer appear to be speedoed, incongruously sweaty for having just started playing volleyball. The camera is more interested in their abs and biceps than the game, but, as is the case for most of Top Gun, a film with more diegetic sing-alongs than most modern children's movies, the soundtrack is the key. Kenny Loggins performs an original song called Playing with the Boys. The chorus goes, "One of life's simple joys is playing with the boys." Perhaps it's because of my relationship to the film's milieu, but for me, Top Gun is not manly at all. It's boily, it's pre-sexual. It's certainly a masterpiece of homoeroticism, but what I'm asking you to consider is that it can be so while carrying another meaning that has nothing to do with that. Top Gun really is a children's film. It's about Navy officers who never swear, the class of people who we know idiomatically cuss like sailors. No one has an ass in this movie. We only talk about butts. The aforementioned, I want some butts. The later line, your ego's writing checks your butt can't cash. Butts only. Nobody fucks, whether in the imperative, fuck you, or collective sense, we fucked, but breath gets taken away. In the parlance of the excellent Berlin song on the soundtrack. Between classes at Top Gun school, it's a school, the officers sing songs together, like You've Lost That Love and Feeling and Goodness Gracious, Great Balls of Fire, and they play sports. The two women in the film are a nice mom, who is Cruise's wingman's wife, and a teacher who is pretty and smart and nice. Every person older than Maverick is personally invested in his emotional development and growth. Both Duke Stroud and Tom Skerritt act as Cruise's two dads. The Navy is essentially a supersonic kindergarten, except the toys are real. The non-specific, politics-free missions the pilots fly appear to have no actual objective or consequence, save for the death of Goose, which has all the weight of your friend moving away. It's cute, goofy, and deeply insidious. Top Gun is rated PG, and it's a movie about the military. If the previous laundry list hasn't convinced you that it operates brilliantly as a children's film, consider that its one love scene between Cruise and Kelly McGillis, featuring the aforementioned Berlin song, lasts for less than a minute and cuts from the two kissing immediately to the next morning. And in the final scene, Kilmer's apparent antagonist of the film says out loud to an assembly of every single person that they both know that he is now Tom Cruise's best friend. This is being a boy. The concept of play, friendship, flying, they're all commanded and brilliantly used in service of an institution whose primary function is just large-scale murder for political and economic convenience. I don't know if Tom Cruise knows he's part of this. I'm not sure he even knows what this means, for the same reason I didn't when I first saw Top Gun. This section is entitled Oprah. Like Top Gun, Tom Cruise is also cute, goofy, and deeply insidious. I try not to dwell on his dogmatic, prominent involvement with the Church of Scientology. This is easy because Mr. Cruise does not seem like the kind of person to donate several millions of dollars a year to what is effectively a combination pyramid scheme and feudal empire. There's a footnote here which reads, I'm at the pyramid scheme, I'm at the feudal empire, I'm at the combination pyramid scheme and feudal empire. His major advantage over the similarly psychotically charismatic founder of the church is that he is attractive, where L. Ron Hubbard looked like a basketball with a face stretched over it. There's another footnote here, but this is the last footnote. I dressed up as L. Ron Hubbard for Halloween in 2015. In every picture, I'm stretching my mouth as far across my face as it will go to mimic his horrid countenance. I spent enough time watching daytime television with my mom after school when I was younger to remember the absolute pandemonium that Mr. Cruise, or Tom, as it was often pronounced by Oprah, would incite upon his appearances in a world before the Great Oprah Couch incident of 2005 and the South Park Scientology episode. Tom Cruise is literally freakishly handsome. There's something kind of unsettling about how platonically good-looking he is. His impossibly perfect teeth, subject of much internet mockery because due to his dental surgery he has a middle tooth which no human being has, are contrary to established scientific fact, the actual source of light which illuminates the moon at night. Yet, with all of this ostensible desirability, he retains a weird sexlessness. His first wife, fellow Scientologist and actor Mimi Rogers, referred to him as a monk in an interview after their divorce. From 3 marriages, he has 1 biological child, which could glibly be described as the only proof he has ever had sex with a woman, or more glibly described as not necessarily proof of the same. What sort of man, capital M man, would ride a motorcycle in 5 of his last 6 films, but sleep with a woman in only 2? I can't possibly know anything about Mr. Cruise's actual interior life, but the wager of this essay and art in general is that we can tell something about someone from what they do. If that's true, and his acting and his real-life acting say something about him, Mr. Cruise is really a child. Who else would jump on a couch to convey their excitement? This section is called Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut is about a person who thinks he's trying to cheat on his wife and he can't. Once, I watched my dad walk into the woods to take a phone call, heard him say I love you at the end, and then call my mom a few minutes later. Never asked, don't want to know. Never told a room full of people that before. Please don't hate my dad. Okay. Top Gun is a movie starring planes that Tom Cruise is in. Eyes Wide Shut is a movie starring Tom Cruise that is about Tom Cruise. Really, every film in which Tom Cruise appears after his three massive successes of the mid-90s, A Few Good Men, Mission Impossible, Jerry Maguire, features him playing Tom Cruise in quotation marks, a hyper-competent being of pure confidence who doesn't achieve his desires so much as he just accomplishes tasks that he doesn't have to work for. The two notable exceptions to this are, one, his greatest performance, Magnolia's vision of this very same character as he would exist in a world with things like emotional complexity and human relationships, which turns out to be a terrifying motivational speaker slash sexual predator slash abandoned child. And two, his worst performance in Eyes Wide Shut. The film asks Mr. Cruise to play not a realistic, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, but the opposite of, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, a man whose absolute confidence is shaken early and ultimately built on nothing, who is not only at the mercy of forces greater than himself, but for once lives in a world where there actually are forces greater than himself. In the film, Tom Cruise is a very rich doctor married to Nicole Kidman. The only thing different about this from his real life at the time of the film is doctor. He and Kidman get high and have an argument about whether they've ever thought about cheating. Eventually, Kidman shares that there was one time she thought about, but did not act on, her desire to sleep with another man. This is the scene where, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, ceases to work. Kidman's lines and delivery are clearly meant to instantiate doubt about her fidelity in Cruise's mind, and Cruise's lines are supposed to display such, but, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, is incapable of conveying this. The rest of the film follows, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, supposedly racked with insecurity, through a series of misadventures in which he is surrounded by the potential for sex that he never acts on despite being Tom Cruise the entire time. We're supposed to identify with this character's dilemma, torn between his marriage and the bountiful, illicit pleasures and intrigue presented to him. It should be especially easy for me to do, as someone who both begged his parents in tears as a child not to divorce and grew up to be a serial side piece. It's either his worst performance or it's his best performance because it's not one at all. What if we're watching someone who has no memory or experience of what fear or doubt are like? What if this is somebody whose world is so completely administered to him that he's a spoiled child who cannot even simulate frustration? Eyes Wide Shut punctures the appeal of Tom Cruise and, quote, Tom Cruise, unquote, that fantasy of total ability and confidence that attracts myself and others worldwide to his films. It's just as someone doing the impossible, nonsensical job of feeling totally comfortable and unworried about being really worried. The implication is terrifying. Tom Cruise is also the real person Tom Cruise. This guy, for whom love is a sub-minute long sequence between not stunt double driving off of a cliff or hanging off of a plane, is real. I'm no longer experiencing a kind of vicarious thrill of being really good at driving or fighting or being a sports agent for some reason. I am actively condoning and admiring a hyperactive 53-year-old child with a disproportionate level of influence over global popular culture. Cruise may express it bodily, but it's the same fantasy an intellectual like me has, which is to be good enough at doing something that the messy parts of my life just fall into place. In either case, it wants to never have to face the adult world to figure out what comes after kissing and before waking up. What fighter planes do besides fly, or if mom and dad don't really love each other. L. Ron Hubbard's guiding maxim for Scientology was, nothing is true unless it's true for you, which is a fairly innocent idea as long as you separate it from the trappings of his paranoia empire. His most famous acolyte, Tom Cruise, seems to be actively engaged in molding the truth of himself through movies where he can do anything except for a few things, just as I'm doing through writing about them. Hubbard engaged in this himself in a piece he called Affirmations, which is a list of things he told himself that were supposed to function like incantations, becoming true through force of his will. The strangest of these, and there is some competition since much of it is taken up with Hubbard convincing himself he is supernaturally sexually gifted and capable of manipulating all people without feeling any attachment to them, is easily, quote, there are no snakes hidden in the bottom of your bed, unquote. I don't know if that's working out for the three of us. And that's it. That's the thing.